This time, we're taking a deep dive into a world most of us only see from the outside, the world of corporate America.
Yeah.
But this isn't about gleaming boardrooms and million-dollar deals.
Right.
This is about something much darker,
Mhm.
something that sent a chill down the spines of even the most powerful people.
Definitely.
We're talking about the murder of Brian Thompson.
Yeah, Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, shot dead in broad daylight.
Right outside the Hilton Midtown in Manhattan.
It's a case that has everyone talking, and for good reason. I mean, the audacity, the precision, the location itself, it all just screams calculated.
This wasn't some random act of violence.
No, not at all. This was targeted. This was a statement.
And the fact that it happened in one of the most surveilled cities in the world, in broad daylight, while Thompson was presumably surrounded by security,
Right.
it makes you wonder, what does that say about the state of things?
Yeah, it's like a crack in the veneer of invincibility that surrounds these figures. CEOs, they have all this power, all this privilege. But this case, it reminds us that they're as vulnerable as anyone else.
And the killer is still out there somewhere.
Exactly, which adds to the unease.
We've been poring over everything we can find, news articles, background on Thompson, the details of the investigation, reactions from the public, the corporate world.
Right.
But no one seems to have a clue who did this or why.
Yeah, it's a real mystery.
So where do we even begin with something like this?
Well, I think the best place to start is with the scene itself. It's December 4th, 2024, just another day in New York City, and Thompson is walking towards the Hilton Midtown.
Probably heading to that big investor conference they were having?
Right, surrounded by people, probably security, and bam, shots fired. Multiple rounds hitting him in the back and the leg. His rush to the hospital.
It is too late.
It was too late.
And to make things even more unsettling,
Yeah.
we found out the ammunition was marked.
Oh, yeah, those markings. That's something else.
I mean, bullets engraved with the words deny, defend, and depose.
I mean, those are just random words. They're loaded with meaning, especially when you think about healthcare and the criticisms often leveled at insurance companies.
It's like whoever did this wanted to send a message.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about silencing Thompson. It was about making a statement about power, about healthcare, about who benefits and who suffers in the system.
Yeah, and the suspect is still out there.
A ghost in the city.
Right. Witnesses describe a white, male, black hoodie, gray backpack, fleeing on an electric bike.
Just vanish.
It's like he disappeared into thin air.
It speaks to the level of planning. This wasn't some crime of passion. This was an operation.
So who is Brian Thompson?
Right. Well, he wasn't just another CEO. I mean, this was a guy who worked his way up,
Yeah, starting as a certified public accountant.
Yeah, he climbed the ranks of United Health Group, eventually became CEO of United Healthcare in 2021.
And his 2023 compensation was reported to be $10.2 million.
That figure alone is going to spark debate. Was he a visionary leader, a symbol of the American dream, or just another cog in a system that prioritizes profit over people?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
And of course, he was also a husband and father.
Right. 2 teenage sons.
Lived in a suburb of Minneapolis, an ordinary life outside of the corporate world.
And that's what makes this case so tragic. It strips away the titles, the money, and reminds us that behind every corporate facade, there's a human being with a family, with loved ones.
A life that was cut short.
Way too soon.
Officially, the motive is still under investigation.
Of course.
But there are whispers, rumors, unsettling details that make things a lot more complicated.
Oh, yeah.
For instance, Thompson's wife mentioned that he had received threats potentially linked to insurance coverage issues.
That's a game changer.
Yeah.
It suggests that the motive might be personal, stemming from someone directly impacted by United Healthcare's policies, someone who felt wronged, denied, maybe even driven to desperation.
So we're dealing with a high-profile murder, a suspect who disappeared without a trace.
Right.
Marked ammunition that suggests something deeper, and a potential link to insurance coverage disputes.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. Where do investigators even begin to untangle all of this?
Oh, I think the markings on the bullets will be a key focus. Are they a genuine expression of the killer's beliefs or a red herring to mislead the investigation?
That's a good question.
Ballistics analysis, profiling, examining Thompson's personal and professional life, looking for any connections, all of that will be crucial in cracking this case.
And we can't forget about the elephant in the room, security. I mean, if a CEO can be gunned down in broad daylight like this, what does it say about the effectiveness of corporate security protocols?
Yeah, that's a huge question, and one that a lot of people are asking right now. Yeah, I mean, you think about the Hilton Midtown, it's like most high-end hotels. They have security cameras, they have security personnel, there are controlled access points. But this attack didn't happen inside. It happened outside on a busy street out in the open. It just goes to show that even in a city like New York, even with a certain level of protection,
Right.
you can still be a target.
You can still be vulnerable. I guess it raises the question, what kind of security can actually prevent something like this?
That's the unsettling part, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have to find that balance between security and accessibility, If you surround yourself with a fortress, you become isolated, you lose touch with the world you're supposed to be leading.
Right.
But I think this incident might force a change, a shift towards more aggressive security for high-profile executives.
So what does that look like? Are we talking about CEOs traveling with armed guards, bulletproof cars? I mean, are they just going to become virtual recluses?
It's not just about brute force, it's about intelligence. It's about threat assessment, understanding the landscape.
Right.
It's less about building walls and more about creating a web of security that's both proactive and reactive.
I imagine the cost of that kind of security is
Astronomical. Astronomical.
Yeah, and it raises another question, who pays for it?
Right.
Do companies pass the cost on to consumers, which would further fuel that economic anxiety that's already out there?
Yeah.
Or do they just accept it as the cost of doing business?
Yeah.
In a world where the stakes are this high?
It's a tough question. This case has really shone a light on a problem that's been simmering below the surface for a while.
Yeah, I think it has. And you see that in the reactions to this incident. I mean, in the corporate world, there's a lot of fear, a lot of tightening security. People are retreating behind closed doors.
Right.
But in the public, the reactions are a lot more complex. There's shock, of course. But there's also anger and even, dare I say, a kind of disturbing celebration in some corners of the internet.
It's a dark side to all of this.
It is. It really exposes the resentment towards figures like Thompson.
Yeah.
The anger at corporate America, the frustration with the healthcare system.
Yeah.
This murder, as horrific as it is, it's become a lightning rod for all of that.
And how do we even begin to address that?
Yeah. I mean, can you really blame people for feeling alienated, for feeling left behind when the CEO of a health insurance company is making over $10 million a year while people are struggling to afford basic care?
It's a symptom of a much bigger problem. It's a systemic issue that goes beyond individual blame.
Right.
This case has just amplified it, brought it into focus.
Yeah.
And it's going to force a reckoning, a conversation about the role of corporations in society, about the distribution of wealth, the ethical responsibilities of those in power.
So is this a turning point? Will this incident actually reshape corporate security practices in a lasting way? Or will it just fade from memory, become just another tragic headline in a world that's already overflowing with them?
I think it has the potential to be a turning point. The brazenness of this attack, the message behind it, the anxieties it's brought to the surface.
Yeah.
All of it has created a sense of urgency that I don't think anyone can ignore.
But security alone won't solve the problem, will it?
No, you're right.
I mean, it feels like we're just treating the symptoms, not the disease.
You're absolutely right. Enhanced security is just one piece of the puzzle. Addressing the root causes of this anger, this distrust, bridging the gap between corporate America and the public, fostering transparency and accountability.
Right.
Those are the long-term challenges that we need to figure out.
This case makes the world feel a little less safe,
Yeah.
a little more uncertain. And it makes you wonder, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What does it mean for corporate leadership, for the relationship between those in power and those they're supposed to serve?
It's a wake-up call, isn't it?
It is.
A reminder that the lines between power and vulnerability are blurring.
Yeah.
And to navigate this new world, we need new ways of thinking. A new approach to security, a deeper understanding of the forces that are shaping our society.
This has been a heavy deep dive, more questions than answers.
Definitely.
But sometimes I think the questions are the most valuable part.
I agree.
They force us to confront some uncomfortable truths and grapple with how complex the world really is. Okay, so let's try to make sense of all of this. We have a high-profile CEO shot down in broad daylight, a suspect who basically vanished, and a motive that's still a complete mystery.
Yeah. And then you add in those markings on the ammunition, it just adds another layer to everything, It hints at maybe, a deeper reason behind it all, maybe even a vendetta against the entire healthcare industry.
It's a lot, and I think what's really striking is how this whole thing has become this focal point for so many different anxieties.
Hmm.
You know, the fear of violence, the anger at corporations, the frustration with the healthcare system. It's all kind of come together in this one event.
Yeah, it's like this case has just ripped open a wound that was already there, exposed all those raw nerves.
Exactly. And it's forced us to ask some really uncomfortable questions like,
Yeah.
can we even keep people in power safe
Right.
without, resorting to measures that just isolate them even more, that create a bigger gap between them and everyone else?
Yeah, I mean, how do you balance the need for security with the values of an open society?
Right, where accessibility and transparency are supposed to be so important.
It's a tough balance, and I think this case has made it feel even more precarious.
It really has, and it also makes you think about the nature of leadership in this day and age.
Yeah.
Can CEOs even operate in a normal way?
Right.
Can they be accessible when they're constantly potential targets?
Yeah, or will this lead to even more fortified boardrooms, even more remote leadership where those in power are completely detached from the people they're supposed to be serving?
It's a scary thought. And what about the healthcare industry itself?
Right.
I mean, will this force them to take a hard look at the policies, the practices that have caused so much anger, so much resentment?
It's possible. I mean, this case has really highlighted the failings of the system, the inequalities, the injustices.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that healthcare shouldn't just be a business, it's a human right. And maybe this tragedy will be the thing that finally pushes for some real change, a push towards a system that's actually fair and accessible to everyone.
I hope you're right. But honestly, I'm left with this sense of unease. Like things are changing, the world feels more unpredictable, more volatile.
Yeah, I get that unease, but maybe it's a good thing too.
Yeah.
Maybe it means we're becoming more aware of the challenges we're facing, the complexities of the world.
Right. And maybe that awareness will lead to something better.
Exactly. I mean, it's through that awareness, through the willingness to grapple with these tough questions that we can hopefully find a way forward.
Well, this deep dive hasn't given us easy answers,
Yeah.
but it has certainly shown a light on some dark corners.
Yeah.
It's forced us to confront some truths about power, about vulnerability, about how fragile life really is.
And I think as we wrap this up, it's important to remember that we're all grappling with this, not just corporate America, but all of us.
Yeah.
What does it mean to lead, to protect, to work towards a future that's actually just and equitable?
That's a question we all need to be asking ourselves. Well, thank you for joining us on this journey. It's been a heavy one, but an important one. And as always, we encourage you to keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep searching for those answers.